What is up, everybody? My name is Blackblade and welcome back to my channel. And for today I would like to share you guys a build that I have been working on, which is mainly focused on the Epiphany with the Inner Fire skill. So let's get into the build. So for our primary skill, I'm using the Deadly Reach with the Scattered Blows. Now when it comes to your primary skill, you can actually choose either if you want a Fist of Thunder, Crippling Wave, or Way of 100 Fist. It will be entirely up to you. But for me, the reason that I'm using the Scattered Blows is because of the AoE that it offers on the third strike. Now for our secondary skill, we are using the Tempest Rush with the Rune Tailwind. This is because we will be using the Tempest Rush in combination with the Epiphany skill, so that we'll have that a little bit of it's kind of like the Seven Sided Stike, but the only difference is you are actually attacking almost almost everything on the screen, even objects. So that's why we are going to use the Tempest Rush for our secondary skill, of course, with the Tailwind, so that we could run 25% faster while we are doing so. Now, for our defensive, for our for our action bar skills, first one, we are using the Breath of Heaven with the Circle of Scorn. The Circle of Scorn rune. Now the reason that we're using that is because we are using the Eye of Peshkov, which reduces the cooldown of Breath of Heaven by 49%. So it will be almost spammable, considering that we already have our cooldown reduction at 45.83%. So it's at about 1,000 to 1,003, 1,004, 1,000, around 4 to 5 seconds, which is not bad, and which is okay. So the reason that I chose that rune is because that since we are already spamming the Breath of Heaven, why not add the damage there? As you can see there, Breath of Heaven also sears enemies for 505 weapon damage as holy. Now for our second skill, we are using, of course, the Epiphany with the Inner Fire Rune. Now what's the like what I said before, this will be in combination with the Tempest Rush, so that while we are doing Tempest Rush, we are actually damaging a lot of enemies and a lot of objects all around us simultaneously. So it's a pretty good skill. The only downside to this is, of course, the cooldown is at 60 seconds. That's why on our Paragon, I put all of my skills on the cooldown reduction, and on my gear I've actually taken into consideration going with the Born set. As you can see there, reduces cooldown. What I mean is, on my shoulders I have Born Privilege, reduces cooldown by all skills by 5%. I really want to push this to 8%, but the problem is I've spent a lot of resources on this one, and I just can't get it up 5% anymore. Per roll it's already at 400k, so yeah, I'm probably not going to re-roll this anytime soon. As you can see there, with the 3 set, we get a reduced cooldown of all skills by 10%, and we have an increased bonus experience by 20%. Now, of course, on my chest piece, I'm using the on another Born's gear over here, Born's Frozen Soul. Now I don't have the third piece, but thankfully we have the Ring of Royal Grandeur, which of course reduces the number of items needed for set bonuses by a minimum of by 1 to a minimum of 2. That means we only need 2 of the set in order to get the 3-piece set bonus. So if you're going to do this build, I suggest that you get the Ring of Grandeur, so that you only need at least 2 pieces of the set in order to get the 3-piece set bonus. Alright, for my fourth skill, I'm using, of course, the Seven Sided Stike with the Rune Fulminating Onslaught. Now the reason that I'm using that is I just got a very, very cool Daibo. As you can see here, the Flow of Eternity. It reduces the cooldown of Seven Sided Stike by 50%, and then combine that, of course, by the 45% for a total cooldown reduction of 95%. But that's not actually the whole number. I'm not entirely sure why, but I believe when I was doing some research on the cooldown reduction, the cooldown reduction actually has a soft cap. So even though you could probably reach 75 or even 100, or no, I think 80% is the max. I'm not entirely sure, but even if you have all those CDR, you will not actually reach 100% like spammable, like 1 second or no second at all. There will still be time for the cooldown. As you can see, if I pop in the SSS, it's at about, I timed it, it's at about 6 to 8 seconds. I'm not entirely sure. Probably 8 seconds or 7 to 8 seconds, but you know, that's kind of okay when you're already playing the game and when you're already fighting and you're in the field and you're actually pressing all of these keys. You won't what I mean skills, you won't actually notice the cooldown reduction, and it's actually quite fast considering that it's at around 7 to 8 seconds. So that's why I'm using the Seven Sided Strike. Optionally, you can go with the where is it? Hold on. No, that's not it. That's not it. Yeah, optionally you can go with the sustained attack, which reduces the cooldown to 17 seconds, which will reduce the overall cooldown of the Seven Sided Strike significantly, but that is of course entirely up to you. The reason that I'm using the Fulminating Onslaught is because of the AoE damage that it does. So yeah, if you really want to reduce the cooldown further, go with the sustained attack. Now, for my fourth skill, I'm using the Mantra of Healing with the Rune Circular Breathing. The reason that I'm using this is for the what do you call this, Spirit Regeneration of 3, because most of the time we will be using the Tempest Rush throughout the area or throughout the gameplay. The only reason that we will not use the Tempest Rush is if all of our cooldowns are what I mean is if all of our skills are on cooldown and we don't have any more, what do you call this, spirit. So that's about it for the 1 to 4 keys. Now for our passives, I'm using the Exalted Soul. Of course, this is for the, I'm using this for the spirit regeneration. For our second skill, we're using the Seize the Initiative for an increased armor of 30% so that we don't die that often, although we are only doing the Torment level 2. For our next skill, also we're using the Beacon of Itar for some more reduced cooldown by 20%, and we're using for the last skill, we're using one with everything, because on my gear I didn't really roll a pretty good roll when I was doing this. I was hoping for a resist all, but what happened was you know, this one we rolled with armor and the other one also we rolled with armor, but I really needed some sockets, so instead of re-rolling that stat for resist all, I instead re-rolled it for 3 sockets, and the other one, of course, I need the reduced cooldown, so I re-rolled one stat into reduced cooldown instead. Now I'm not going to be going through all of my gears in detail, but I'm going to be going through them you know, one by one, so that you guys know what I'm using. For my helmet, I'm using the Eye of Peshkov. For my amulet, I'm using the Haunt of Vaxo. For my wrists, I'm using the Reaper's Wraps. For my armor, for my torso, I'm using the Born's Frozen Soul. For my shoulders, I'm using the Born's Privilege, so that in combination we get the reduced cooldown of all skills by 10%, and we get an increased bonus experience by 20%. For my gloves, I'm using the Mage Fist with a Quadfecta. As you can see, high roll of dexterity, perfect attack speed increase. I think it's 7 or is it 8%? Regardless, it has attack speed, critical hit damage, and critical hit chance. For my belt, I'm using the Fleeting Strap for the additional DPS of the attack speed. For my other ring, I'm using the Band of the Rue Chambers. For my pants, I'm using the Ashira Space. For my ring, for my other ring, I'm using the Ring of Royal Grandeur, also a trifecta. No, also a quadfecta. For my boots, I'm using the Ice Climbers. Pretty good roll on this one. I did re-roll one stat in order to get the Vitality instead. And for my last for the last piece, for my weapon, I'm using the Flow of Eternity. As you can see, it did not roll a pretty high minimum damage. As you can see, the minimum damage is only at 1.7. A lot of the two-handed weapons that I've been picking up is at around some are around 1.8, 1.9, and some are around playing at 2000 plus. So it's pretty sad that I didn't get a pretty high roll on this one. Alright, so also for my switch bracers, I'm using this one. You know, simply because for the additional, you know, elite packs that would spawn. As you can see, the orange tooltip shrines will spawn an enemy champion. So every time I see a shrine, before I click it, I wear this one, and then when the elite packs comes up, I automatically switch back to the Reaper's Ramps. Alright, so enough talk, let's get into some gameplay. Of course, we are going with, we're doing Torment level 2 on Festering Woods. Alright, so I do apologize guys if I haven't really made any videos lately. You guys know the drill. I have work and I have a lot of projects on my hand, and yeah, I mean on my table, and I just can't really find the what do you call this, the time to you know, grind the game and, you know, play some more. And yeah, so as you can see, we are doing pretty good. The Breath of Heaven has a really fast cooldown. We can almost spam it to the point that the cooldown is really good to the point that we can almost spam it. And yeah, and as you can see, also the what do you call this, the Seven Sided Stike is also having a really good cooldown at around 7 to 8 seconds. I'm not entirely sure how, you know, the exact time of it. Hold on, let's just get this what do you call this, quest. What do you call this? Kill Galgush the Valdan. But let us get the treasure goblin first. Hold on, it's running away. Right, I guess we need to do the SSS now before the goblin runs away. And no, you are not running away. Come here, baby. Come here, baby. Okay. No. Alright, so it's a good thing we were able to kill him. Yeah, so it's pretty good. The build is very viable on even on what do you call this? Even on Torment level 2, and I did try it on Torment level 3, but the problem is it takes me a long time to what do you call this, to kill mobs because of their life. And as you can see here, I'm not doing pretty good with my damage. My damage is only at 768k, and our toughness is at 6m. Also, our life is at 351k. Alright, so let's get into that chamber right here. What I mean is crypt, so that we could get an what do you call this, an elite pack action somewhere here, if we could find them. What the hell? Alright, so here he is right there, and let's pop in the Seven Sided Stike. And while we're at it, let's pop in the what do you call this, the the Epiphany. So this is how you're going to play the game. Ideally, you'll just, you know, run around the map using the Tempest Rush, while the what do you call this, the Epiphany does the damage for you, and then occasionally doing the Seven Sided Stike when the cooldown is already up, and then of course doing the Breath of Heaven for some additional damage. And then when the Seven Sided Stike is already up, you know, SSS again, and then use the Breath of Heaven again, and then go back to doing the Epiphany. And then, you know, that's exactly it. You know, it's really good. Clearing out maps and areas is really fast with this build. I suggest you guys try it. I mean, you can actually do a Torment level 1 riff runs really fast. Yeah, so I guess that's about it for me, guys. So thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I'm gonna see you guys on the next part of my video. Have a good one. So that's my number 2. For my number 3, I was using the preparation with the polished wood. This simply because that when we're using the strafe skill, we are the skill actually eats out through the